We recognize that the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society gathers on the traditional land of the Western Abenaki people. We respect the Abenaki's spiritual and life-giving relationship to this land. We seek to honor the living traditions of the Abenaki people, and we humbly hope to learn from them how we may better live in harmony with the land and our fellow humans.
Good morning, and welcome to the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society's streaming service. As members and friends of the Champlain Valley Universalist Society committed to the Unitarian Universalist principles, we strive to be an inclusive and welcoming community that sustains a liberal religious tradition. We aspire to be visible and active on behalf of social justice and environmental responsibility. We nurture and empower each other at all ages on our spiritual journeys, and we reach out to the larger communities of which we are a part. My name's Jason Duquette Hoffman. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am the worship associate for today's service, which is led by our minister, Reverend Barnaby Feeder. If you are visiting today, please send us a message to introduce yourself, and be sure to join us after the service during our virtual coffee hour for good conversation and company via this Zoom meeting. After the service, all who wish to join our virtual coffee hour should stay on the Zoom meeting, and Lucy will move us into breaking out groups. If you haven't already done so, this is the perfect time to turn off your cell phones or any other devices that you are not using to stream this service, or put them into worship mode. If you have milestones and passages that you would like to have us share with the congregation during that portion of our service, please enter them in the chat, and Barnaby will review these as we go along. Our service today is a product of efforts of many people, in addition to all of the support that our worship team and staff provide. Richard Hopkins was our gatherer, organizing the contributors, and producing our show. Margie is our video caster today. The Time for All Ages is created and produced by Poppy Reese. Our music today was provided by Chuck, and Lucy Tenenbaum curated the images you will see throughout the service. Where there are opportunities to join along in words or song, you'll see the words appear on your screen at those times. Our call to worship today is from Maya Angelou, who teaches us and leads us towards our best imaginings. May we engage her with our whole selves. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Every day of every week, we are giving birth to the dream through our connections and commitments to each other. Beyond our weekly services here, there are many pathways to connection. If you're not receiving our monthly newsletter or our weekly Wednesday emails, please email office@cvuus.org so we can get you on those lists. An update to the latest monthly blast: the Zoom Coffee House will be postponed until winter takes its firmest hold, so stay tuned for updates as the cold settles in. Next week, our service will include a blessing of the animals. Reverend Barnaby is looking for your photos, drawings, or short videos of animal members and families you want to share in that service, plus any ideas you have for elements you would music, readings, and so forth. I'm sending mine because you may notice that our doggo needs all the blessings she can get. Oh dear. The worst. She's the worst. She can't dog. Yeah. That's our girl. And now it's time for our chalice lighting. And for this, I realized that of the many things that I have prepared for today, I neglected to bring up the chalice and candle that I was intending to light. So I would like everybody to close your eyes for a moment and light a chalice of your mind. And say with me these words: we light this chalice to gather our minds into community and to remind us that within the garden of life, we are all siblings of intricate interdependence. Thank you, Barnaby. We're moving on the fly here. And now it is the time for all ages. Do we have Poppy ready to roll?
So I have a question. Hi, everyone. I'm having tech issues. So this video is still too laggy, right?
That's weird, but you know, it's computers.
Choice number 2, hold on. Is this other, is my phone. My phone where I look like I'm looking sideways for some reason. Can you guys see me on my phone?
Poppy, go with 1.
Okay, so let me disconnect this. Sorry, everyone. Please bear with me.
I think I'd have to spotlight it, but then when you wanted to show a picture, people wouldn't be able to see
Yeah,
it. So
I just got to make sure that I've disconnected it successfully.
You're not bad.
Ah,
The lag
okay.
is better.
Is my audio normal? That's really the key thing. Is it yes?
Sounds good to me.
Doug just gave me a thumbs up. See, Doug, this is how you know that we can see people. Right. Okay. So I just do have to get out of this one. I'm sorry. Leave. Okay. All right. So after all that, I don't know why the video is laggy, but if it bothers you too much, you can just close your eyes and listen to me talk. In a second, I'm going to show pictures and it won't matter how I look. So I was thinking about how activism and how there are so many things in the world that need help, and how many of us are really flat out trying to do things to make the world better or just make our lives go. And sometimes we have the energy and the extrovertedness and whatever it takes to go out and go to protests and things like that. And sometimes we really don't, or maybe we're introverts and we hate crowds, and we really need activism that is a little more gentle or can be done at home or is kind of a solo thing. So that made me think of something that is called craftivism that I'm going to tell you about. All right, so can everyone see that letter? No.
Says your screen sharing, but we're just seeing black. So maybe you need to choose the window. Yeah. Yeah.
Now you can see it? Weird. I just have a lag. Okay. So this is a letter that Sarah Corbett, who's a woman from England, wrote to her local select board person. And instead of writing them a letter with a pen and paper or typing it, she took embroidery thread and she wrote the letter on a handkerchief. So basically she sewed the letter. And her thinking was that by sending something that had been done so carefully with so much thought, that it would get their attention more than a normal letter. She also liked the process of making it, because instead of just typing, zipping off some little letter on a computer that doesn't really take much thought, it was really time consuming to do this. She wrote the whole thing on a handkerchief with a pencil first and then went over it with thread. So for her, it was a very thoughtful experience. And the whole time she was doing it, she was really aware of what she was saying and who she was saying it to and what she hoped would happen. So she felt like it kind of deepened her commitment to what she was working on. And then she sent off this handkerchief. And it turned out that the person who got it really did notice it, and they ended up framing it and sticking it up on their wall and calling her and had an interview with her. And she went on to do big things. She ended up doing huge things with garment workers in England. And this kind of kicked off this thing for her about using a craft, making something at home, something that maybe is a way you spend time already, for activism. So that's what craftivism means, right? It's a combo of crafting or craft and activism. So I just wanted to show you a couple other examples and then give you some ideas to do at home. And kids can do these also. This is the Nike blanket petition. So I don't know if you can tell, but this is made of 500 tiny little squares of crocheted yarn. And people from 40 different countries and every state in our country contributed these. And the person who put them together, Kat Mazza, made this whole thing. And so it was a combo of all these people were crocheters already. Then she made this thing. It's the Nike swoosh. So she made it and it showed up. It traveled around our country in museums for about 5 years, getting bigger. The whole border was being added to it. And then the whole thing was sent off to Nike. So it was a petition about the conditions of the people in other countries who make Nike clothing. So a great example of taking something that maybe you like to do at home that you can do kind of by yourself and then turning it into this worldwide thing. It got tons of publicity when it was made. These letters are sewn onto this fence in LA. This is called yarn bombing. This is another example. This is the last example I'm going to show you. This is a group, I want to say this right, Hombres Tejedores, which loosely translated means men who knit. And it started with a couple guys who were just looking for something to do and knew that one of their friends knit. And it turned into this thing that now happens in countries all over South America, maybe other countries. And a couple times a month, these guys go out in public and they knit. And they often knit with pink yarn. And for them, it's a way of saying to limit what men can do or what you think of men is not helpful, right? So kids, if you're looking at this, it's like thinking about why are there things that a certain gender can do or that we think a certain gender can do? That's crazy, right? Everybody can do everything. So that's their point. So I want to send you with a couple ideas. And these are for anybody can do these, but especially if you're at home, not really able to leave and thinking of something you'd like to do. So one idea is the handkerchief letter, right? So to do this, you take a handkerchief, or you could just take a piece of material or an old piece of a shirt or something like that, write your letter out and sew it. Kids can embroider. They just need help threading the string. You can use really thick thread to do this too. They just need help. And as long as you've written out the letters very carefully, you can go over that. And the other idea I'm going to leave you with is called a mini banner. So this was an idea from Sarah Corbett, the same person who did the handkerchief letter. So you can see, hopefully, I'm not sure what people are able to see at this point. It's the same kind of thing. It's taking a message that you want to put out there, something you want people to be thinking about, and putting it on carefully with thought and care onto some little thing that you're going to go hang in public. Someone could put this in public for you if you're someone who's not really leaving your house much right now. This person put it on with zip ties to make it really hard to take off. You could tie it on with ribbon. You could sew it on if you, again, want it to have to be cut off. Kids can do this. And if kids can't sew yet, you could also do it with a fabric marker or even a permanent marker. But the idea is that you're doing something thoughtfully so that while you're making it, you're really thinking about it and you're giving it enough thought and care and time that when other people see it, it's so obviously made with care that they'll stop and look at it, right? It's not just a little typed thing stuck up on a wall. Someone really took time to make this. So people going by are going to be like, well, what is this? What is this little piece of craft here? So that's what I want to leave you with, is the idea that there's many different ways to make change. Sarah Corbett, who's the one who came up with these ideas, calls craftivism gentle protest. For her, it's a form of gentle protest for the people that aren't necessarily wanting to go out and scream and be fierce, though we really need those people too. So for those of you that think of yourself as maybe more of a gentle protester, I hope that maybe this will inspire you to do something. And I want to end by saying that CVUUS has tons of materials that we would love to share with you. And I'm happy to bring them to you or make little boxes that you can pick up. We have embroidery thread and felt and paint and material and all kinds of stuff. And I'm happy to get them to you. If you do anything, please will you take a photograph and send it to me so that we can share them later. So let me just stop sharing, go back to my glitchy photo. So I miss you all and I love you. And I hope you will find a way to be an activist in some small or big way this week. Peace.
Hello, UU family. I'm going to sing a song with you called Shine on Me. It's an amazing spiritual that anybody can sing. And in these days when the things that we're dealing with, the feeling separate and all of that, and things seem so hard, this is one of those songs that you just throw your head back, put it in your medicine kit. All you have to do is ask. And here's how it goes. Shine on me, oh shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me, oh shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. Lift me up, oh, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, lift me up, yes, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, hold me close, yes, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse hold me close, yes, hold me close, oh, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse, please hold me close. Oh, shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me, oh, shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. All you have to do is just ask.
This is the time in our service
Light.
when we share our offering with a group in the community that exhibits our values in the world in its work. And now that we're in a new month, we have a new donee. It's the Vermont Food Bank. Now, by way of introducing the Vermont Food Bank to you, which as an organization, a lot of you know is kind of the clearinghouse for many food programs in Vermont. I want to say that when our 3 kids were growing up and my wife, Michelle, got annoyed at them asking over and over, what's for dinner? And then at least 1 out of the 3 saying, yuck, I hate it. She started saying when the kids asked for dinner that what she was serving that night was yuck, I hate it. And that was their only alternative. I was thinking about this story today because what we really hate is the idea that there are people out there who don't get food at all or don't get enough food. And the Vermont Food Bank is our primary organization to reaching out to these people to improve food services for all forms of marginalized people in Vermont. You will see in the videos, the slides that show in a minute, the specific programs the group engages in. I invite you to be as generous as possible in your sharing with the food bank this month so that we can demonstrate that we hate the fact that not everybody is getting the food they need. Our first milestone today in the milestones and passages section of our worship service comes from me, and is to let you know that this is our 30th consecutive online worship service since we were forced by the coronavirus to stop meeting Sunday mornings in our beautiful sanctuary. We owe our ability to do this to the collective work of many of you, but especially to our tech team led by Margie Young, our initial online service producer. And as time has rolled on, Richard Hopkins, who got his feet wet as our gatherer, receiving and organizing many recorded, photographed, and live elements of our worship, putting them into an order of service for Margie, and then graduated to alternating with her as co-producer on Sunday mornings. Richard still volunteers as our gatherer on many of the weeks when he isn't producing Sunday morning. And when he's not gathering these days, that work is ably done by Rich Wolfson. The final volunteer in this team is Jordan Young, who smoothly hosted nearly all of our Zoom coffee hours with a few breaks from our choir director, Lucy Tenenbaum, who has filled in for him when Jordan is unable to do this work.
Thanks for the shout out for the tech team. Real thank you.
Well, Margie, I was actually praying this week to the spirit of life-giving love and love-giving life for some guidance on how to honor the tech team.
That might explain the private Zoom message I got in the chat room this morning. It's from a visitor I haven't encountered before. The name says, Spirit of Life Giving Days Off and Days Off Giving Love. The chat comment is, let me just go back to it, get a few more congregants to join the tech team.
I wish we could. The time commitment is predictable, and it seems to be very rewarding for the folks who are doing it. And anyone with modest computer skills can pick up the basics with a little training. Well, please let our visiting spirit know. I would love to learn how to infuse CVUUS members with a deep spiritual lust to give the tech team a try. How should I address this guest who has such a long name?
Just got another chat message. It says, don't even begin with the names and pronouns. I respond to thousands of them, and that's just in this universe. And by the way, it's all of you who are my guests, capital M.
Okay, I'll just invite folks to get in touch with me, you, or Richard for more information on the tech team, or with Jordan if they might be willing to host the Zoom coffee hour. Let's move on to our other milestones and passages. I have one here for these troubled times. We know that each week there are many, many unspoken milestones and passages, and we always leave a time of silent prayer and meditation for everyone who is with us to locate where their hearts are on this particular morning. Sometimes we go straight into this period of silence. Sometimes we lead into it with a prayer. Today, we're going to lead into it with a prayer. Jason will read it to you. It's called Autumn Prayer by Jess Reynolds. And it's from their 2018 meditation manual called Love Like Thunder. This prayer is an example of pathways to connection outside of Sunday morning in our congregation because it was recently shared by Marjorie Carson as the opening reading at our monthly Caring Network meeting. At the end of Jason's reading of this prayer and our silent meditation, you will hear the music of John Freund, a member of the congregation in Paramus, and Andre organized all the visuals that accompany it. And he recently preached a message on its message of interrelationship. And now, Jason.
Spirit of life, be with us this autumn. Just as the trees and nights are changing, so too are our lives shifting. Some among us are grieving. We grieve for loved ones and for parts of our own hearts that do not fit us any longer. We mourn the green leaves and the summer birds, and we mourn the dreams we had that are dying. Spirit of life, do not let us be empty this autumn. Remind us of the life that will flourish come spring, and help us to hold space for the loss that comes first. We cannot resurrect ourselves without letting something in ourselves die. May we gently guard those tender, empty places, and may all the great love of the universe press against our raw edges and our sorrow. Spirit of life, hold us in this season of dying. Hold us in the chill October wind and among the branches scraped clean, and in the swirling center of migration. May we close our shutters, but not our hearts, and may we gather by the hearth in communion that we might manage to fill one another with the warmth to make it through the winter. Blessed be.
The kings, it will begin when all can claim the kingdom within. Right divine will have no place when divinity is seen on every face. Will I hold out? Will I hold back until the fortress walls begin to crack? Cast off my robes, lay down the crown, destroy the castle, lay the stones back in the ground. Talk not of kings, but kith and kin. Kin of kin, our fact is fact. Done is done, I can't take it back. Yeah, mine is mine, I'll claim my back. My silence shredded into rag. Talk not of kings, but kith and of care who mill around, averting eyes and gazing at the ground. The king is dead, there's no regret. The kid now claim what no king could begin. Of kith and kin. Souls cannot be built till we dig up the graves of shame and guilt. Together see, together heal, on a piece of level ground we all reveal. Of kith and kin. Not of kings, but kith and kin. Not of kings, but kith and kin. That's all of kings and kith and kin.
Our reading today is excerpted from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s 1963 book, The Strength of Love. And reading aloud is another way of listening. And as I read this with you all, I do so from a place of listening carefully, attending intentionally, and feeling fully these words from Dr. King and Mother Pollard. One of the most dedicated participants in the bus protests in Montgomery, Alabama, was an elderly woman who we affectionately called Mother Pollard. Although poverty-stricken and uneducated, she was amazingly intelligent and possessed a deep understanding of the meaning of the movement. On a particular Monday evening, following a tension-packed week, which included being arrested and receiving numerous threatening telephone calls, I spoke at a mass meeting. I attempted to convey an overt impression of strength and courage, although I was inwardly depressed and fear-stricken. At the end of the meeting, Mother Pollard came to the front of the church and said, "Come here, son." I immediately went to her and hugged her affectionately. "Something is wrong with you," she said. "You didn't talk strong tonight." Seeking further to disguise my fears, I retorted, "Oh no, Mother Pollard, nothing is wrong. I am feeling fine as ever." But her insight was discerning. "Now you can't fool me," she said. "I know something is wrong. Is it that we ain't doing things to please you? Or is it that the white folks is bothering you?" Before I could respond, she looked directly into my eyes and said, "I done told you we is with you all the way." Then her face became radiant and she said in words of quiet certainty, "But even if we ain't with you, God's gonna take care of you." As she spoke these consoling words, everything in me quivered and quickened with the pulsing tremor of raw energy.
Congregations. I'm gonna press. Am I unmuted now, Margie?
Yep.
Okay. Some of you may have heard that many UU congregations have set aside today to participate in the national UU the Vote campaign, a campaign that challenges us to make sure that our values show up at the voting booths all around the nation in November. And it allies us with democracy advocates supporting marginalized people whose voting rights have been under attack in many states. Now, some UU congregations around the nation are screening the entire worship package provided by our association, including a sermon by our denomination president, Susan Frederick Gray. Now, this movement, UU the Vote, resonates with the work of the Movement Voter Project, our donee for the entire month of September. And it embodies the Cornell West quote, "We are holding close to our hearts this month. Justice is what love looks like in public." But I'm not going to be discussing UU the Vote any further this morning. I'm not ready to move on yet from the Native American wisdom we explored last week in the worship that Liam organized for us. And some odd things have happened in the past week that let me know the universe, if it has any say in these things, doesn't want me to move on yet. I'll get to that in a minute, but first let me remind you of last week's message. It was that the people whose land we occupy experience the natural world as blessedly grounded in interdependence among diverse species and people. Now, Liam focused on what the Abenaki natives of this region called the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash. These three very different food sources, which were intentionally planted together by Native American farmers in many regions of North America, typically flourish together in ways that none of them can do alone. Corn is planted first. It provides the stalk that the beans climb in their quest for more light. And that gives the corns more stability in rough weather. It also protects the beans from competition from the bigger leaf squashes, which spread out horizontally across the ground. The squash, in turn, helps slow evaporation of vital groundwater, aiding all three crops in enduring dry spells. And the beans also put nitrogen into the soil, a vital nutrient that corn on its own will soon exhaust. As food, the three plants together produce a well-balanced diet for humans. Thinking about this relationship turned my attention to a different Three Sisters vision. As UUs, we talk about being called to make the world more just, more compassionate, and more beautiful. Three dimensions of calling. These are three spiritual sisters. Justice is the most public form of love, but compassion and beauty are not lesser sisters. Each is a part of a well-balanced spiritual diet for a human, and each can help the others flourish, just as those three plants do. I fear that we beat ourselves up, or just as unhappily shut ourselves down, when we fail to honor and celebrate all three sisters. We are easily drawn these days into a sense that the many struggles for justice are the great test of who we are. We feel summoned into these struggles by the horrific police killings of unarmed Black people like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, by the passing in July of legendarily courageous civil rights leaders like Congressman John Lewis and the Reverend C.T. Vivian, and more recently, by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We are called to battle the racism and anti-democratic behavior of our president and his allies. We know full well our challenge is to step forward into what Congressman Lewis famously called good trouble. Now, I've done a bit of that in my time, but it's not enough to respect myself for it. Not enough, I fear, for the spirit of life-giving love that I worship to know me first and foremost as a deeply committed justice seeker. And that makes me wonder about you who count on me for leadership. Are you done a bit of justice, fellow travelers? We pull back from good trouble for 1,000 good reasons, some as simple as being too old or too young or tired or sick or anxious. Often we feel too bound by other commitments. But maybe, just maybe, you and I are doing more than we realize. I'm not saying this just because I love you and I want to give all of us the benefit of the doubt. I think maybe in this environment, we're forgetting that justice has sisters. Maybe we don't recognize how we tend to the needs of justice by tending to the sisters. Jason told you about Dr. King's memories of Mother Pollard. She was thought to be around 72 in 1955 when the Montgomery bus boycott began, with Rosa Parks' famous refusal to sit down at the back of a bus. But it was unclear when Pollard was born or when she died. In fact, no one referred to her by her first name if anyone in the movement knew it. There was no report of her still being alive when Dr. King mentioned her in a speech at the end of the 1963 Voting Rights March from Selma. He recalled her saying that when she was urged on during the bus boycott to take it easy, maybe she was walking too far and too often, she said, "My feet is tired, but my soul is rested." My feet is tired, but my soul is rested. This became an iconic saying, underscoring how many of the civil rights leaders saw their justice work in deeply Christian religious terms. They saw it as soul work. But King wrote at greater length about a different encounter with Mother Pollard, the one Jason just shared with you. That encounter focused not on her, but on her compassion for Dr. King and the huge impact that compassion had on his ability to stay in the struggle. Here's this old woman. Many of us have had a chance to meet old African-American women. There's something that seems young about them. They age well, but she spoke simply consoling words straight from her heart. And the words were of faith in him and God's mission for him. And that set Dr. King quivering with raw energy. Compassion is an ageless and devoted sister of justice. Compassion props up and inspires it. With that in mind, I want to tell you about the odd things that happened to me this week. Have you ever read one of those choose your adventure stories where each plot choice you make takes you in an unexpected direction? Well, mine started with a website called atlasobscura.com. The website curates stories about weird and amazing things you can find as a world traveler. Now, this will come as no surprise to those of you who know her, but I found it on my wife Michelle's computer, open to the food section called Gastro Obscura. And I noticed an article about a new museum called the Happiness Institute in Denmark. The article mentioned an exhibit of some tomato seeds grown by a woman in Oregon. According to the article, she had hung on to her father's clothes for 10 years after he died from cancer. And then she decided to use them to make memory quilts for her mother and siblings. The odd thing was that she wasn't a quilter when she decided to do this, but having to learn a new craft didn't stop her. Then, while cleaning and ironing the shirts so that she could use them in the quilt, she discovered 2 tomato seeds caught in the pockets. Her father had been an avid gardener. She wasn't, but that also didn't stop her. She decided to grow the seeds in his honor. One of them became a thriving tomato plant with the help of a grow light she acquired. She then saved its seeds and grew a crop from them outside the following year. And as she kept growing tomatoes from this seed line in the ensuing year, she started packaging the seeds and giving them away to friends and relatives who had lost someone dear to them in death. She called them comfort seeds. When she heard about the Happiness Institute, she applied to have them placed there. And to her surprise, hers was one of the few American entries accepted. I decided to seek her out. It took a while, but I eventually tracked Katie Diaz down. She lives in a small town the size of Vergennes called Sisters. It gets its name from the nearby volcanic mountain range known as the Three Sisters. Now, one story goes that a 19th century minister called the 10,000-foot plus summits Mount Corn, Mount Beans, and Mount Squash. No, I made that part up. He called them Mount Hope, Mount Faith, and Mount Charity. There's no real record of what the indigenous people called them, but now they are called North Sister, Middle Sister, and South Sister. Katie responded to the email request to chat from this weirdly named Reverend Barnaby Feeder. Hello, I must admit, I saw a Rev and I wasn't so sure, but then I saw UU Church and relaxed a bit. I'm happy to talk with you. My number is listed below. I'm available after 2 p.m. tomorrow Pacific time. It's been a wonderful journey. Now, Katie, I learned, is a 41-year-old occupational therapist and yoga instructor. The youngest of her 2 children is a high school senior whose life has been disrupted by the coronavirus and experienced many of you parents and grandparents in the congregation are living through with your own family. Katie was raised Catholic and converted to evangelical Christianity. Then she moved on to a more personal religion that she told me occasionally involves visiting a UU church. She always gives her seeds away, a spiritual form of charity somewhat related in her mind to tithing to a church. For several years, until the coronavirus struck this year, she planted tomatoes with special needs children who attended a summer camp run by her husband. Many of them had suffered traumatic loss. Katie's seed journey also led her into a relationship with Manda Severin, an Oregon artist and musician who was inspired to work with her on illustrations and other artworks. And I'm going to ask Margie to put up one of those artworks right now. I hope you can see the tomatoes growing out of the heart. Katie told me about Manda. Her work has blown my mind. Through art, Manda expressed what Katie called her inner life connection to the seeds, grieving, and comfort. The illustrations, for instance, draw on Katie's childhood memories and pets, in addition to tomato imagery. And Margie, maybe you can show the wall mural that Manda did, looking into someone's brain. We think that it must be Katie's in her mind. And I think we're going to be able to expand that image a bit. Are we able to get that up full size, Margie? I hope. Anyway, I'll go on and say that in talking more about all of this, Katie told me about visiting her father's grave, which is marked by a simple stone in the woods near a meditation center, only to hear later that day from Manda that she had envisioned Katie that day encountering the marker. And in that vision, it was a stepping stone. 2 sisters with a beautiful connection, beauty and compassion were everywhere I looked in what Katie was telling me. Was there, I wondered, any connection to the 3rd sister, Justice, in her mind? I never thought of it as justice work, she said, but someone who follows her on Instagram posted their belief that it was silent justice work. Katie wasn't sure what that might mean, but I think there's something to it. First, what Katie and Manda are doing together strengthens others to the point where they can do justice work if they feel called to it, the way Mother Pollard boosted Dr. King's flagging faith and spirits. But there is a more direct connection as well. I believe that any acts rooted in making the world kinder and more beautiful that are freely given without regard to who can pay for them subvert our unjust economic structures. This is direct justice work. And as you heard in Poppy's Time for All Ages, some of it is obviously so and it has a name, craftivism. But wherever you find, or you yourself nurture, compassion and beauty, justice will be lurking. If you live lovingly, if you live with an inner ear tuned to the calling of love with a capital L, you will be accompanied through your days by all three love sisters: justice, compassion, and beauty. As it so happens, my faith in this was reinforced on Friday. Katie emailed me to say the daughter of a friend and 2 other high school seniors had been killed in a car crash Thursday evening. This was the latest, and in some ways most shocking loss surrounding Katie, who lives in a part of Oregon where homes and businesses are being consumed by wildfires. She asked if I had any words of love and comfort for her and her community in this time of acute grief. I responded as best I could. I wrote that the greatest wisdom I encountered from those who taught me to be a minister was that we should not walk into any grief situation with an expectation that those mourning will experience it or express it in a predictable way or sequence. I told her, all you can do is be present to your own emotions and those around you with the mantra that this is what grief is like this time. Then I confessed to her that in my view, there is no justice or equity in situations like this, nor any all-powerful, all-knowing being pulling the strings who has a plan for us. There is, however, the wondrous fact that can never be taken away, that this person we've lost won a lottery against all odds, a lottery to be born and to live among us. And that fact, I said, leaves the rest of us abundant space for gratitude that our lives intersected with theirs. Even in our pain, we are blessed to remain here after they have died to do meaningful things in their memory. And I said, it may be just hugging and feeding each other when the pain is still too fresh to think of anything else. But I passed on also my faith that there is so much more we can end up doing as we recover our strength. And I close with prayers that they all be held in the spirit of love. Well, Katie emailed me back that she had shared my message with other mothers as they grieved together. She thanked me and she said, meeting you was timely. And then later that day, she sent an email with a photo of the gate outside her friend's house. And Margie's going to put that up. And this is the gate that she and other women had decorated before they had a moment of silence outside the house. And she told me that at the request of the dead girl's mother's best friend, my message had been read aloud there. My beloved CVUUS, this isn't about the 3 sisters of love operating through me across a huge country on short notice. This is about them operating through you, the congregation that has called me to this work and constantly urges me to represent your values and aspirations to the wider world. Now, it wasn't originally the plan, but at the last minute, I heard Katie was able to join us this morning and she's in our Zoom meeting. And I just want to say this, through me, Katie knows an entire community of UUs in Vermont is accompanying her and her friends in their grief. And through me and you, I hope Katie will know our deep, deep gratitude for the gift of once again being able to experience the presence in our lives of a spirit of life-sustaining love. In that spirit's name, we pray that we will never fail to cherish and respect the sometimes tenuous but never extinguishable sisterhood of justice, compassion, and beauty. I invite you into a moment of musical interlude before our benediction. as we go forth today and in the days to come, choosing our adventures from what life puts before us, may we know that we are held in the arms of a love greater than anything we could ever understand fully. And may that inspire us to walk in the sisterhood of justice, beauty, and compassion. Blessed be, and amen.